Next, I want to talk to you about the term that you'll see a lot in algebra. It's called factor. So let me write that down real quick. A factor. I am not going to give you a book definition for a factor. I'm going to give you Jason's definition, because my definition I think is a little easier to understand, even though it's not as nicely worded as a book. It is something that you multiply together to get a result. In a nutshell, factors are things that are multiplied together. That's really the bottom line. So, for instance, if I had x squared, now we're actually diving into the realm of algebra a little bit using an actual letter. Don't get worried about letters. Letters are not a big deal to worry about in algebra. All you're basically saying, x could represent any number. X could be 1, x could be 5, x could be -3, x could be 1.4, x could be anything. So we don't know what it is, so we just keep it as x, and we're just going to leave it like that. But you also know that anytime you raise a number, which is what x really is, to a power of 2, it's the same as x times x. This is coming straight from the definition of what an exponent is. So these x's here, these are what we call the factors. So these are what we call the factors. This is really just a definition. To be honest with you, you're going to use factors a lot in algebra, but this is more of just getting the definition drilled into you. They're factors because these are the things we multiply together to kind of get what we started with, basically. Let me give you another couple of examples, and I think you'll see. If I have 3z to the 4th power, how do I write this? Well, it's going to be 3 times z is raised to the 4th. 3 has nothing to do with this exponent. Z is the thing that's raised to the 4th. So it's z times z times z times z. So the 3 is multiplied by z times z times z times z. All of these things here that are multiplied together, they're just called factors. Just trying to give you some examples. In fact, they're called the product of factors because product means multiplied. These are the factors multiplied together to give you what you started with. Now, what if I had, open parentheses, 5 times t squared? When I write two things next to one another, like 5 and t with nothing in between, it always means multiplication. Anytime you see two things sitting next to one another, in algebra, you got to get used to the fact that you're not going to always see multiplication symbols everywhere. If things are sitting next to each other, you just need to assume that they're multiplied together. But in this case, 5t is raised to the power of 2, but it's inside of parentheses. This means that this exponent applies to everything in here. So it would be 5t times 5t. So 5 times t times 5 times t, basically. And these are the factors. These are the things that are multiplied together to give you that. Notice that that's a little different than above. Here we didn't have any parentheses, so the exponent only applied to the z. But here the parentheses are forcing the exponent to apply to everything inside, and that's another reason why parentheses are so useful. Let me switch colors here just to break it up a little bit. Let's say we have 5 parentheses 2x to the 3rd power. How do you think that's going to be written? 2x to the 3rd power. Well, like I said, the 5 is sitting next to something without anything in between, so you should really think of it as being multiplied together. And this is all raised to the 3rd power, so this is going to be 5 times 2x times 2x times 2x. I'm multiplying 2x times itself 3 times because that's the exponent. 5 is multiplied by everything because it's just sitting next to the parentheses there. And the 2x, the exponent is applying to the 2x as a whole unit because it's wrapped up in these parentheses. The parentheses like a little sandwich bag. Everything in there has to kind of sort of stay together, more or less. And everything on the outside, like this exponent, is going to apply to that whole thing. All right, so we've talked about quite a bit of stuff. We've talked about exponents. We've talked about the factors when you multiply them together. These are just labeled factors. That's just more or less to help you when your book starts talking later on about factoring expressions or telling you what the factors are in a test. You'll know what they're talking about. They just mean things that you multiply together to get what you're started with or whatever term you have. Now,